Steelers Nation, come on in. The Pittsburgh Steelers are walking into this matchup carrying something that goes far beyond the record, beyond the standings, and beyond what many people outside this fan base are willing to admit right now. At 8-6, this team is standing at a true turning point. Momentum is real, confidence is growing inside the locker room, and the opportunity ahead is much bigger than just one win. What we've seen over the last 2 weeks has completely changed the tone of the season. 2 straight victories, and not just any wins, a dominant performance against the Miami Dolphins. The kind that reminds the entire NFL what real Steelers football looks like when the standard of the franchise starts showing up on the field, snap after snap. Now I want to hear from you, Steelers fans. Is this team ready to take the next step? Do you believe this momentum is real, or do you still need to see more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the voice of Steelers Nation matters a lot. In today's video, we're breaking down this moment, what has truly changed, what's at stake moving forward, and why this game could say much more about the future of the season than it seems at first glance. And if you're Steelers for life, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's ride together. Here we go. This is why this game against Detroit matters so much. The Lions aren't just another opponent on the schedule. They come in with the #1 offense in the NFL, a unit built around a powerful run game and explosive playmakers that can turn one missed assignment into 7 points in seconds. Beating a team like that on the road would not be a fluke win. It would be a statement that this Steelers team is peaking at the right time, exactly when teams with real postseason ambitions start separating themselves from the rest of the league. What makes this moment even more intriguing is how different it feels compared to the start of the season. Back then, this stretch of games was labeled a gauntlet. Bills, Ravens, Lions. On paper, it looked like a stretch that could bury a team if things went sideways. But football seasons evolve. Teams change. Identities sharpen. And right now, the Steelers are playing their best football of the year. The offense is finding rhythm, the defense is rediscovering its physical edge against the run, and the confidence inside the building is very real. That confidence didn't come out of nowhere. The win over Miami was especially telling because it came under circumstances where many expected the Steelers to stumble. Key injuries, questions about depth, and a Dolphins team that had been running the ball at nearly 200 yards per game since Week 10 all pointed toward a difficult night. Instead, the Steelers dictated the game. They controlled the middle of the field, they won the time of possession battle for the first time all season, and they sent a clear message that this team can impose its will when it plays disciplined, physical football. Now the challenge gets even bigger. Detroit's offense thrives when its run game is rolling. If Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are allowed to control the tempo, everything opens up for Jared Goff and the passing attack. The Steelers know this. Stopping the run isn't just a defensive priority, it's the foundation of the entire game plan. If the defense can stand tall early, force Detroit into uncomfortable situations, and limit explosive runs, it gives the Steelers a chance to dictate the pace instead of chasing it. Injuries, of course, remain part of the conversation. The Steelers are managing several key situations, and depth will matter. Nick Herbig's status looms large, especially with the need for fresh edge rushers against the high-powered offense. Cam Hayward's veteran presence remains crucial. Derek Harmon's return to full participation stabilizes the interior. Every snap, every rotation, every adjustment matters when you're facing an offense this complete. But this game isn't only about the defense. The offense has its own responsibility to carry. Sustaining drives, protecting the football, and continuing to build off the recent rhythm is essential. The run game has to remain a factor, not necessarily with explosive plays on every carry, but with consistency that keeps the chains moving and the defense off the field. When the offense controls possession, it limits opportunities for Detroit and changes the entire complexion of the game. There's also a bigger picture at play here, and Steelers fans should understand exactly what's on the line. A win in Detroit doesn't just feel good. It applies immense pressure on Baltimore. The Steelers already control their destiny in the AFC North, but beating the Lions tightens the vice even more. It opens scenarios where the division could be clinched before Week 18, potentially allowing the Steelers to rest players and lock in a home playoff game. That's not speculation. That's a real path that begins with handling business in Detroit. Inside the locker room, players are talking about standards, not hype. They're acknowledging there's still room to clean things up, but they also believe the level of football they're playing right now is the best it's been all season. That belief matters. Teams that make noise in January usually feel this way in December. This is why this game feels different. It's not about proving doubters wrong. It's about proving to themselves that the work, the adjustments, and the resilience have all led to something tangible. The Steelers don't need to be perfect. They need to be physical, disciplined, and composed. If they are, the outcome could reshape the entire AFC North race and how the rest of the league views this team heading into the postseason. So as you look at this matchup, ask yourself this: if the Steelers walk into Detroit and take down the #1 offense in football, how should that change the way everyone looks at this team? And do you believe this is the moment they officially announce themselves as a real threat moving forward? If you carry that thought forward, the next layer of this game becomes even more revealing. Because Detroit isn't just talented, they're desperate. Their playoff situation leaves no margin for error. A loss here essentially closes the door, which means the Steelers are walking into an environment where emotion, urgency, and aggression will be cranked all the way up from the opening kickoff. That matters, because how a team handles another opponent's desperation often tells you exactly where it stands mentally. For Pittsburgh, the key is not getting caught up in that emotion. This team has learned, sometimes the hard way earlier in the season, that playing fast doesn't mean playing reckless. Against Miami, you saw patience. You saw an offense willing to take what was there instead of forcing hero throws. You saw a defense that trusted gap integrity instead of chasing splash plays. That discipline has to travel to Detroit, because the Lions feed on mistakes. One missed tackle in the run game, one blown coverage, one short field after a turnover, and suddenly the game script flips against you. That's why time of possession becomes more than just a stat. When the Steelers control the ball, they control the stress points of the game. Every long drive not only keeps Detroit's offense on the sideline, it also tests their defensive depth and forces them to tackle in space. Even field goals matter here. Points are points when you're facing the highest scoring offense in the league. Finishing drives doesn't always mean touchdowns, but it always means walking away with something. There's also a subtle confidence shift happening with this offense that shouldn't be ignored. Conversations behind the scenes have translated to cleaner execution on the field. Routes look sharper. Protection has been more coordinated. The quarterback is operating with decisiveness, not hesitation. That doesn't guarantee success against a strong opponent, but it gives the Steelers a chance to stay balanced and unpredictable. When the run game is respected, play action becomes dangerous. When play action hits, it forces defenses to back off, opening space underneath and on the edges. Defensively, the challenge is sustaining intensity for 4 quarters. Against an offense like Detroit's, you can't win the game in the first quarter, but you can absolutely lose it there. Early stops matter. Forcing punts, even if they don't come with turnovers, sets a tone. It sends the message that nothing will come easy. If the Steelers can make Detroit earn every yard, frustration can creep in, especially if the scoreboard stays tight into the second half. Another layer that can't be overlooked is the matchup in the trenches. This is where games like this are decided quietly. If the Steelers' defensive front can hold its ground against the run without needing constant extra bodies in the box, it allows flexibility on the back end. That flexibility is what keeps explosive plays in check. On the other side, protecting the quarterback against a physical pass rush is about more than sacks allowed. It's about avoiding negative plays that kill drives before they start. What makes this moment fascinating is that the Steelers don't need this win to survive, but they absolutely benefit from it in every possible way. Winning in Detroit changes the pressure dynamics of the division. It turns upcoming games into opportunities instead of necessities. It also reinforces the belief that this team can win in hostile environments against elite competition, which is exactly what playoff football demands. And that's the bigger picture Steelers fans should be thinking about. This isn't just about one Sunday. It's about whether this team is building the habits required to win when the margin for error disappears. December football exposes flaws. It also reveals growth. Right now, the Steelers are showing signs of a team that understands who it is and how it wants to play. If they execute the plan, stay disciplined, and handle the moment, they don't just give themselves a chance to win the game. They force the entire AFC North to react to them. They turn the conversation from can they hang around to who wants to deal with this team in January. That's why this matchup carries so much weight. It's a measuring stick, a pressure test, and an opportunity rolled into one. And when the final whistle blows, regardless of the outcome, it will tell us exactly how real this surge is and how dangerous the Steelers can be if they continue on this path. When you extend this conversation even further, it becomes clear that this game also tests something Steelers fans have debated all season: sustainability. Anyone can put together a strong 2-game stretch in the NFL. What separates legitimate contenders from hopeful teams is whether that level of execution holds when the opponent raises the difficulty. Detroit does exactly that. They force you to be sound, not flashy. They punish hesitation. They test your conditioning, your tackling, and your communication snap after snap. That's why the Steelers' recent growth in situational football matters so much here. Third downs, red zone trips, and the middle eight have quietly swung games in Pittsburgh's favor over the last 2 weeks. Against Miami, the Steelers capitalized before halftime and immediately after, creating separation without needing perfection for 4 full quarters. Against Detroit, that window becomes even more important. The Lions are built to surge late if they're allowed to hang around. Flipping momentum at critical points is often the difference between a narrow loss and a defining win. Another under-the-radar factor is how composed this team looks when adversity hits. Earlier in the season, one bad series could snowball into multiple stalled drives or defensive breakdowns. Lately, you've seen quicker corrections. Missed assignments don't turn into panic. Penalties don't spiral into undisciplined football. That maturity suggests a team learning how to manage itself, which is a trait you expect from playoff-caliber rosters. This is also where leadership becomes visible. Veterans setting the tone during the week, young players understanding their roles, and the coaching staff trusting what's working instead of overcorrecting. Those details don't show up in box scores, but they define whether a team can survive tough stretches in hostile environments. Detroit will challenge communication, especially up front and in coverage. Handling that noise, both literal and figurative, is part of winning on the road in December. Zooming out, Steelers fans should recognize how rare this opportunity is. Not every season gives you a clear runway to control your destiny while still having room to grow. A win here doesn't just move the standings, it buys margin. It gives flexibility. It allows this team to approach the final weeks with confidence instead of desperation. And confidence, when earned, is dangerous in the NFL. What's most compelling is that this team doesn't need to reinvent itself to win. The formula is already visible. Physical defense, disciplined run fits, an offense that values possession, and timely execution in scoring situations. That's not flashy football, but it's sustainable football. It's the kind of style that travels and doesn't collapse when conditions get difficult. So when you think about this matchup, think beyond the final score. Think about whether the Steelers look like a team that knows exactly who it is. Think about whether they impose their identity or get pulled into someone else's game. That answer will tell you more than any stat line ever could. And that's where this conversation stays alive. Because regardless of how this game unfolds, it's shaping the path forward. Do you see this Steelers team as one that's finally figured out how to win the games that matter most? Or do you still need to see more before fully buying into what they're becoming? There's one more angle to this that deserves real attention, because it speaks directly to what Steelers fans have lived through in recent years: credibility. This franchise has never lacked relevance, but there's been a lingering feeling that something was missing when the lights got brightest. Close losses, missed opportunities, games that slipped away late. Those moments don't disappear overnight, but they can be overridden, and games like this are how that process starts. Detroit represents a different kind of test than Miami. The Dolphins game showed dominance. This one demands resilience. There will be moments where things don't go perfectly. A drive stalls. A tackle is missed. A call doesn't go your way. The question is whether the Steelers can absorb those moments without losing structure. Championship-level teams don't avoid adversity. They manage it better than their opponent. That's the bar being measured here. What's encouraging is how grounded the approach has been coming out of the locker room. There's confidence, but not bravado. Players aren't talking about statements for headlines. They're talking about execution, consistency, and continuing to stack habits. That mindset matters because it keeps the focus narrow. One drive at a time. One stop at a time. That's how road wins against elite offenses are earned. You also can't ignore how this game feeds directly into belief across the roster. Young players grow faster when they're part of wins like this. Veterans get validated when preparation shows up on Sundays. Coaches gain trust when adjustments work in real time. All of that compounds. It's how teams quietly become dangerous while the rest of the league is still debating them. And let's be honest, this is the kind of football Steelers fans recognize. Not perfect, not flashy, but hard, physical, and mentally tough. The kind of football that forces opponents to earn every inch. When that identity shows up consistently, it doesn't matter who's on the other sideline or what the rankings say. Games become uncomfortable for everyone else. That's why this moment feels bigger than one matchup. It's about whether this team has turned the corner from surviving weeks to defining them, from reacting to circumstances to creating them. A win in Detroit would echo far beyond the standings. It would reinforce that this group understands what it takes to win meaningful football in December and beyond. So now it comes down to you as fans watching this unfold. When you see this Steelers team line up against one of the league's most explosive offenses, do you feel that calm confidence that they belong in this conversation? Or do you still see this as a test they need to pass before you fully believe in what this season can become? And as this season keeps tightening, that feeling you get watching this team becomes just as important as the results themselves. There's a difference between hoping something works and expecting it to. Lately, when the Steelers take the field, it feels less like they're hanging on and more like they're dictating terms. That shift doesn't happen by accident. It's built through weeks where preparation finally meets opportunity. What stands out most right now is that this team no longer looks like it needs everything to go perfectly to compete. Earlier in the year, the margin felt razor thin. One mistake could derail an entire half. Now, there's an ability to reset. A bad series doesn't define the next one. A missed chance doesn't spiral into frustration. That emotional control is one of the hardest things to develop, and it's often what separates teams that reach the postseason from teams that make noise once they get there. This is also where the AFC North context sharpens the picture. The Steelers aren't chasing anyone. They're being chased. That alone changes how games are approached. Pressure shifts to the teams behind them, to the ones who must win instead of want to win. A victory here forces Baltimore into uncomfortable territory, knowing that even one slip could cost them the division. That's leverage, and leverage matters late in the season. Even in the event this game turns into a grind, that might actually favor Pittsburgh. Ugly games, physical games, games where every yard feels contested, those are environments the Steelers are built to survive. Detroit wants flow and rhythm. The Steelers want disruption and discomfort. Whoever imposes their style will control not just the scoreboard, but the emotional tone of the afternoon. And that's why this matchup feels like a defining chapter rather than a standalone story. It's not about proving people wrong on social media or flipping power rankings. It's about whether this group has truly found its identity and can lean on it when the stakes rise. If they have, the rest of the league will start adjusting how they prepare for Pittsburgh, not the other way around. So as you watch this unfold, ask yourself honestly, do you see a Steelers team that's simply enjoying a hot stretch? Or do you see a team that's learning how to win games that shape seasons and redefine expectations? What do you think this moment really says about where the Steelers are headed? And that's why this matchup feels like a defining chapter rather than a standalone story. It's not about proving people wrong on social media or flipping power